it wasn't their really breakout album. They kind of with this one
kind of travel too well.
It just like it just did, like at the time it just never really had a critical like acclaim anywhere else really.
Fair enough.
It was in the later albums they started building a following and whatnot.
Well, I think as well, kind of like music like this really only kind of started getting accepted because a lot of the metal community even were kind of like, oh fuck this, kind of like I don't want women singing in it, kind of, you know, not in a kind of a fucking chauvinistic kind of way, or
but it wasn't just really accepted in the metal.
Is there another way?
Yeah, I know it wasn't kind of like, oh, because there was other bands that were doing it, but I think it was like the opera kind of style thing that people were just like, this doesn't fucking because it is, you know, if you're kind of.
If you're used to kind of a grungy, not grungy, but you know what I mean? It's sorry, it's always sort of like kind of
I guess
dirty, low down, filthy kind of a.
It's definitely an odd
heavy
fusion.
scene, and then all of a sudden it's like this.
It's very
clean,
Eurovision,
operatic,
kind of like it's for.
Yeah, I suppose for someone like me who would have been more kind of into pop, you know, classic kind of rock a little bit and dance for quite a lot of it as well. For me, it was definitely a new take on music for me. But I was kind of happy in that sense because I actually thought I always had a very eclectic and very kind of wide variety of music, and through these past 2 weeks I've been like, oh, actually my circle of music is very small altogether.
Wait until we start introducing you to world music.
I know,
right?
right?
Exploding like South American drumming or something like that.
And kind of like all that kind of skinhead music that Mark listens to a lot of the time.
Oh yes.
We'll build her up to that.
Ska music, sorry, ska.
Oh, I used to love ska.
That's but it like even with it, like we felt one thing about the making of the album, and it was really just them shooting the video and talking a little bit about the formation of the band and how they all got together. I have to say, they all seemed to get on really, really well, and they were like nice. 21, 22.
Yeah, super nice and super young.
Do they still really get on that well? I wonder.
I'd say so to a degree because from the looks of it, like the way Epica formed in its first place, like it did like form off the bat of Mark Jensen leaving after forever because of creative differences, and because like they're all established in their own right now because they've been going since 2002. Like I doubt if they were really going on. I'd say to be would have been a split, or at least you would see more solo stuff on the side. Where like some of them have done that now, but like for the most part they do what they like together. Like as we were talking about in the kind of history of it, like they also kind of go off and just do random weird stuff. Like they did an Attack on Titan stuff, and they've done like they've done kind of a weird one or two of their songs. They did like kind of a weird mashup of like symphonic metal mixed with swing music, and it was weird. Like they just do what they kind of enjoy. So
that sounds interesting and intriguing, to be honest.
So with the album itself, then Mark, kind of like, because it's kind of a classic album, because at first I was like, he's just picking fucking albums that he likes himself, and he's trying to torture me, the bastard. And then it was like, it does seem to be kind of like considered a classic. Like it did, a lot of people at the time were like, oh, this is very different, and this is people that kind of, I suppose, give it the time when it did come out. But what would be kind of like is there any overarching themes kind of like running through it, kind of like lyrically, or was there?
There's some like not through the entirety of the album. Like they do have like some level of themes going through the album where they're talking about kind of the dangers of religion in some parts of it, and in other parts, well, very clearly, I can't remember the actual song off my head now, because why not?
the one with Tony Blair when it comes in.
Yeah, you don't really need to have like a PhD in reading between the lines to see what they're talking about in that one now.
Yeah. When that came in, I was a bit kind of like, I was like, am I fucking still listening to the same fucking stuff? Because it just did seem to kind of come out of nowhere, where they have it like talking about terrorism and stuff.
None,
and it's just like,
none of the other ones really do it, and none of the other songs really operate in any way the same kind of method or formula. So there would be kind of like that probably would be the other theme that you could see maybe in a couple of the songs, is kind of like the dangers of religion and whatnot. But it does seem like this is kind of it has a little bit of it doesn't have an overarching theme running through it, and the songs kind of, they don't exactly flow between one another 100%. As I said, you can definitely see it's rough in some areas, and you're definitely finding their own feet. It definitely suffers from some of the things I was complaining about in our last episode when we were talking about Fate No More. And like, that's definitely one of, like, kind of a point against them. But I don't know, it's just like, it's an album that, like, to this day I can just throw on and enjoy, and it's just really enjoyable. But at the same time, I really can't fault anything, like, kind of most of the criticisms you brought up, in the sense that, like, they definitely, like, if you go off and listen to, like, the newest album and then this album, you'd be going, Jesus Christ, there's some difference in their sound and even how well they just mesh together. But I still, like, I don't know, it's just, it must be just what you're saying, Wayne. It's a very divisive album. You either think it's just middle of the road, or you love it.
Well, it's the thing, if we had to record this after I listened to it for 2 days, I'd be a lot more kind of it was fucking awful kind of a thing. But it was like, a lot of people, why I kept going back listening to it, because a lot of people were saying, you do have to, this is one of those albums where you have to listen to it, like, a lot. And it was just today, for some reason, when I put it on, I was like, actually, it's okay, it's all right, like, you know. It kind of started growing on me.
So you're kind of differentiate between that we didn't record yesterday then.
Yeah, I still can't differentiate between any. Well, I suppose there's some of them that are starting to stick in my head, kind of like, but it's
sing them.
Forever. Well, I don't
know why, but when I was listening to it as well, just one of the songs, it just kept reminding me of the like, it was just there was one part in it where Simone is singing, and it sounds like she's about to break into the anthem that the Irish rugby team sing before they start. Like, playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the Irish rugby team is, like, formed of Northern Ireland and Ireland, so they don't sing the Irish national anthem. They just sing, like, a kind of
an amalgamation almost.
Well, no, it's like shoulder to shoulder song, but
but yeah, there's a lot of.
Imagine if Epica came out singing the national anthem for the rugby.
I could picture it.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We went off listening to Lordy after this, and I was kind of like, this is better.
Yeah,
I like this.
Lordy are great.
But then I could actually see it.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I could see Epica going into the Eurovision. It just has that kind of quality.
But that's
to
all
it.
the symphonic metal is a lot like that. But it's just
symphonic and power metal. Just like a lot of the headliners as well, just have a tendency to just be a little bit off the wall, kind of crazy. But also their videos are just kind of like, for the most part, it looks like it's just a bunch of nerds. For lack of a better term, who just want to make music, because, like, you see them all just like some of the symphonic bands are just like, well, I'm going, like, our music video is just going to be a wizard and a knight fighting each other for 10 minutes. And it's like, what's up?
Let's film outside a castle.
There's I could picture a lot of LARPing goes on in the symphonic metal, kind of like in the downtime. Like,
and as we said there, like you don't even go that far afield. Like, Epica literally recorded a full album on Attack on Titan, so that really says it all. It's like, they're just watching, it's like, yeah, let's do our own cover of Attack on Titan things. It's like symphonic metal from fucking Norway mixed with Japanese anime. Okay.
But it's kind of hard with this album as well to see, kind of like, say, the lasting impact it would have had on the music. Without kind of, for it to be, like, say, a classic album, but and as well, because people don't seem to talk about it too much, but then the people that do, they are and it seems to be an important album. Well, like, at the same time, like,
does a classic album necessarily have to, like, always, like, bring, like, earth-shattering revelations to the masses and whatnot, or does it just have to be a really standout album that, like, to this day kind of works and it like has stood the test of time?
Yeah.
Yeah, both.
Yeah, both.
Everything. Yeah. Nothing. All at once.
But no, it is, like, what I'm kind of saying with this is that it does seem to be, from people that are kind of like really into it, it does seem to be an important album, but I can't figure out how. It's just because I think it's probably came out at a weird time with the internet as well, because it would have appealed to a niche audience.
Who probably would have all got it on MySpace or something like that.
Yeah, kind of like where it's like where it wasn't a big popular thing, but it does seem to be. And like, I mean, symphonic metal is just a thing now. So I presume they would have been a big part of kind of like it becoming more popular, you know. Which it's just because there's so very little, it's hard to tell if this album had an impact on that, but it does seem that it did.
I suppose they would be one of the few big bands in that arena. Really. There's not a huge amount of big bands.
But the ones that would have been, well, I suppose kind of like
Nightwish.
Mark get into it, like all the recommendations and stuff. Kind of like but yeah.
Yeah, so from my point of view, on the Epica,
are they epic or are they
like the Phantom Agony? To myself, anyway, is a great standout album. But like, if you're more like Wayne or Laura in your tastes and whatnot, then maybe go listen to the Holographic Principle, which is their latest album, where they've definitely come together a lot more. But yeah, my recommendation would be to go listen to them, or else.
I would say to be
else
because
there's a
it's
threat.
like for it as an album thing, I do, because like I do quite like sometimes kind of like music that is kind of like a bit hard to listen to, because you do appreciate it more. I'm kind of glad that I did listen to it a bit more, because I think it probably will grow on me over time a lot, because it did grow on me.
I'm looking forward to checking out more of the music, definitely. Anyway.
Oh yeah, we see this is the thing, because I think that their other stuff is really good. Like I do really like Epica as a band. It's just this album, and like I'm sorry, it is starting to grow on me, and it's sometimes you have to put in a bit of work.
That's it. There's some of my favourite albums. The first time I listened to it, I went, "Oh, that's shit," and then after the second or third time, you kind of go, "Actually, that's not so bad." And then all of a sudden, it's oh my god, this is my favourite album ever.
So I would say if there's anyone out there that they do kind of like on the back of this, go off and give it a listen to. Don't kind of like
discard it immediately.
I
definitely give it a go.
Give it a chance. Yeah, I would give it a chance.
Because one thing I have found from all of the music that we've listened to, there's at least a couple of tracks on every single album that I've enjoyed.
Yeah,
and added to a playlist.
Exactly.
I think I'd recommend it. Which I probably
it's a bit
wouldn't
of a turnaround from the last couple of days. Yeah,
that's a turnaround from 20 minutes ago.
I hated it. I don't understand it. Actually, it's not too bad. I recommend it now.
Young kids these days and their sounds. I don't get their sounds.
But
actually, it's not a bad
they did
sound.
something that's, because like I mean, some of the other stuff that I was listening to in kind of like symphonic metal, it's very kind of like poppy and kind of like it's designed for it like to be a 3-minute song that I'm probably making it. Whereas like in fairness to them, kind of like with this album, there's a lot, like they're fucking like the Phantom Agony, it's 9 minutes long, and there's 8 minutes. You know, kind of like looking at them talking as well, when him talking about why he went away from the other band that he was in. He was saying because he just liked film music and he wanted to mix that with metal, and like they did it. Like, you know, it's unique, I suppose. Album.
Thank you.
Would it? So yeah, Mark. Even kind of like in the middle of this, you're after turning me around to it.
Yeah, and what I really like about them is you can definitely see that they're like you just said it best, Erwin. Kind of like they went off and did something that they wanted to do, not because they thought it would be commercially successful or that it'd work to make them millions of dollars, but just because they were nerds who were like music, but also really want to do this thing, and you can see like they worked at it, and now
they put a lot of work into it.
Well, over the coming years, they put a lot of work into it, and yeah, I definitely think it paid off for them. So Epica, a great band that I definitely recommend people should go and do a little bit of research on themselves and make that decision for themselves.
Indeed.
So I suppose now you might have some recommendations for other symphonic metal bands, since you've done the whole history of symphonic metal. Now you can kind of come at us and give us some recommendations, and we might throw some recommendations back at you.
Indeed. Well, actually, funnily enough, I came across Epica. Kind of the first time I'd even heard about them was at another symphonic metal concert. It was at a Sonata Arctica concert. So they'd be one of the first symphonic metal bands I would have heard of, outside of kind of the big ones like Nightwish or Lacuna Coil. I would like to see them as well, but just haven't really been playing in Ireland since I started listening to it. But Sonata Arctica is definitely be one of my favourites of kind of all time in the symphonic metal area. And as I said there as well, they kind of break the mold in a lot of symphonic metal bands have, in the sense that their singers and whatnot isn't they don't have a female vocalist. as their lead singer, whereas most symphonic metal bands do, and like a lot of my favorite ones do as well. Like as I said there previously, Nightwish and Lacuna Coil would be really good bands in their own right.